I literally had in my bio, it just said, lover of unborn babies and their mamas. Like, just something of like...
I love that.
It was just... And it wasn't like a hardcore pro-life statement. And I was put on a blacklist. Do not work with her. She's a very edgy person to work with because of this stance.
Alexa PenaVega, I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you for having me.
You're awesome.
I feel like I've known you for years.
You too. We're social media friends.
The power of social media.
Yes. Yes, you are so awesome inside and out, and you've been so beautiful in your witness for life. Thank you for speaking out.
Girl,
I know it's a hard space to speak out in if you're in entertainment, so thank you.
If I would have approached this like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have been in a different place. I still have the same feelings towards it, but I definitely would be a little bit more afraid to use my voice. I've just found having the right community around you, you feel so supported to be able to speak out regardless of what is happening in our culture. I really feel like I have the foundation of, obviously, God, but community. So it's an easy thing to talk about now.
Amazing. I want to hear the story. We were talking about it a little before we started filming. I was like, seriously, God moving in your life to just
God is awesome.
Set things up for you guys. But okay, so you are beautiful, and you're also the most adorable kid actor. So cute. Spy Kids.
Thank you.
You were in, but that wasn't even your first show. Tell folks listening how you first got involved in acting.
Okay, so I grew up on a ranch in Florida. And my mom was a model, so she would fly all over the place. And one thing that I loved about her was she would take me everywhere with her. And whenever she had a job, it was me, and then she had my little sister, and then my little sister would come as well. So we just always traveled as a pack. And then on one of those shoots, somebody's like, you really should get your kids into acting because they're really great around people. And it just kind of transpired from there. And I was such a ham. So I went into my first audition at 4, and it was for a show back in the day called Evening Shade with Burt Reynolds and Mary Lou Henner. And I guess it went really well because in the room, Burt Reynolds gave me the job, which was wild.
Amazing.
Super wild. And that's what started my career. Like, I truly kind of fell into it, and I really feel like I was always supposed to be a part of this industry in some way.
So it sounds like you had a positive experience.
I did.
I did as a kid.
Yes, but I have to give my mom a lot of credit for all of that, because I think the one thing that's really hard in this industry is, you know, you want your kid to make it. Like, you're willing to do whatever it takes, like drive them to all these auditions. So parents work really hard, and I think a lot of times these parents get a bad rap. But I think something my mom did different than a lot of the parents in the industry was that she never compromised family. She wanted to make sure that she was the one still raising us, not sending us to set with a manager or with a nanny, or like going to set with me and then a nanny raising the other kids. She really made sure that we were a tight-knit community. So if I had to go film in Austin, Texas, like during Spy Kids, that was a 6-month shoot. We flew as a family unit to Austin. We all moved there. We did the movie, and then we came back. And I think there's something really important about keeping that foundation, especially for young kids, because this industry will eat you up. I mean, it will just destroy families. And I think keeping that foundation really allowed us to get through the industry, not completely unscathed, but for the most part, pretty well.
What was your favorite role to play growing up?
Obviously Spy Kids was unreal. Like, that was just such a ridiculous experience. But we're talking, this is before social media, so we were able to enjoy.
That's nice.
Set. Yeah, it makes me really
better.
sad.
Yeah.
So I saw Daryl a couple months ago, and we were just sitting down, really reminiscing on what an unreal experience we got. Because kids nowadays, even, and this is not to dog these other little kids, but I think we were shooting Spy Kids 4 or something, and they just were so aware of the movie that they were shooting, whereas we were just kids playing dress up. And we were so excited to show up to set just because it was fun, not because we were like, we're going to try to be movie stars. Like, that wasn't even in our head. We just loved our jobs. And I think kids nowadays are so aware of, this can make me famous, and this can make me, you know, like social media like these can give me social media views, whatever. And it just makes me so sad because a lot of that innocence is lost. And I feel like Spy Kids was kind of one of the last things that I really got to do before, you know, cell phones really became a thing. And
how old were you?
For the first one, I was 11. The third one, I was 14 or 15, and then they came back and did a fourth one when I was in my 20s, and then I think they just did another one. So they're still going, which is fun, but Spy Kids will always have a special place in my heart. And then a very close second is a movie called Run the Wild Fields, and it's just about a country girl, and I think I love that because I love ranch life, and that was kind of the way I grew up.
What's your approach or your personal philosophy to acting?
If it's not fun, don't do it. And I know that sounds like super silly, but we're playing dress up for a living. I mean, really think about it. We're playing dress up for a living. So we can sit there and talk about the craft and all this stuff, and that's awesome, but that's just not who we are. We just want to enjoy it. We want to make people smile. We want to keep people entertained. Actually, just to like fill you in on what's happening now, we recently have had the opportunity to kind of really produce our first film. We've been producers on films before, but you know, you have so many other people involved that you know, your say kind of gets dwindled down. This was the one where we were very hands-on. We were given an opportunity to hire people, hire our writer. We came up with the concept. Somebody gave us money to actually shoot the movie, which was awesome. And now that we're in the edit process, we're realizing, oh my gosh, this really is not a battle of flesh and blood. Like, this is a very real spiritual battle, because we are coming up against so many obstacles to try to get this movie done. And it's heartbreaking, but we're witnessing, like, okay, in this realm of movies that we're trying to make, there are only a handful of people, I feel like, trying to make family-friendly content. And the content that's out there is hard to watch because it's so cheesy. It's so hard to watch, where you're like, okay, I know this is appropriate for the whole family, but I also want to watch something good. So a lot of times we end up compromising and going and watching other stuff, which is, you know, fine, but it's not great for your spirit. It's not great for your kids to, you know, watch stuff that compromises, you know, I guess, their values and your belief system. So we are really witnessing, like, okay, the enemy is totally fine if you can make really crappy family movies, because he knows eventually you'll get bored of that and move on to the other stuff. And I think that's what so many of us do. We're like, okay, you know, we'll put on, you know, the sweet family network, but if it's not great, it's only going to hold your attention for so long. And we're trying to change that. We really are, but we're definitely coming up against a lot of obstacles in that area. And it's a bummer, but you know how it is. When you're leading the way on something, it's not going to be easy.
Can you share what the project is and what those challenges have looked like?
Yeah, this project is called Get Him Back for Christmas, and it's a great American family movie. And, you know, love everybody over there. They're amazing. But when we all got together, we said we need a change. We need to really showcase, like, you know, with the hallmarks of this world, the great American families of this world, you know, the kind of movie that you're going to get. You turn on the TV and you're like, okay, it's not going to be the best movie, but it'll be appropriate for the kids. Why are we going to settle for that? And that was our conversation with them. So they really gave us a lot of free reign. But with that comes a lot of, you know, it's a first for everybody. I think we're trying to break the mold. So I think there's just a lot of hesitation of, oh my gosh, are we ready to do? It's like, it's all it is kind of like old school 90s Christmas movie. We're bringing back those old feel-good movies, and I think we need those again.
But it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
And it sounds like you're really hands-on with it.
Oh my gosh. So Carlos is on a flight to Australia right now, and he is editing the final scene of the movie. So he...
On his flight?
On his flight.
And where's Carlos going? Why is he going to Australia?
Carlos is going on tour right now.
What's his band?
Oh yes, I should probably mention that. Yeah. So my husband Carlos is in a band called Big Time Rush, and they are
a lot of fans of Big Time Rush. Very cool.
Yeah, they're doing really well.
So he's editing your movie on the way to his world tour.
Yeah,
for Big
literally.
It's a hardworking family over here.
It is, but the Latinos, we work really hard. That's just what we do.
So you also have little kids.
Yes.
And one thing that we've really admired, and I've admired from afar, so I love getting to meet you, is how you share family life in this really intentional way through your work in media, and then also your testimony when it comes to the value of life. You've done some really beautiful sharing of some of the heartaches you've experienced when it comes to children, but then also the beauty of family and having family. So let's start actually with meeting Carlos, how you guys met and married, and then I want to hear about your family.
Okay, so I met Carlos at a Bible study, oh my goodness, I think almost 13 years ago now, here in California, at our friend Andrew's house. He was actually going through a breakup. I had recently gone through a divorce, and we'd both kind of hit our own personal lows. And he was just not feeling fulfilled with where he was at. He was dabbling in alcohol, drugs, just kind of starting to go down a path that he just knew was not him. And Andrew was kind of this light in his life, this one consistent friend that always seemed happy. And Carlos called him one day when he was just at his lowest. He was like, why are you so happy all the time? And Andrew's just, laughing. He's like, oh, well, I mean, it's not that I'm happy all the time. I just choose to be joyful, even in the hard times. He's like, yeah, I know how, why? And he's like, well, honestly, dude, Jesus. And Carlos hung up on him. He was really upset. And then called him back and he's like, I'm sorry, talk to me about Jesus. They went to church that Sunday, and that Thursday was Andrew's Bible study. So right after church, he just loved what he experienced. He just experienced the goodness of God. And then on that Thursday, went to Bible study, and that's where we met.
And what was that? I mean, who made the first move? How long did you got married?
Oh my gosh. So because I had recently gone through a divorce, and it was not in a faith-based relationship at all, I just was I'm like, I am not looking for anybody. I am ready to just figure my life out with God. I'm ready to just mature up, okay? And he was just friend zoned for a very long time, poor guy, but he's persistent and kind and sweet. And I always laugh because Carlos was literally everything I never knew I wanted. So my no list was Carlos. And God was like, I'm just gonna show you something for a second, because you actually need all those things. That's why you're steering away from it. And he's perfect.
Tell me about the kids.
So the kiddos, oh my gosh. So we have 4. I'm going to just say we have 4 kids. I have Ocean, Kingston, and Rio, and we have our heavenly baby, Indy. They are just so spunky and fun. There's something really special, I feel like, that I just wasn't prepared for with having kids, and that's just seeing bits of us pop through our children, and things that they never would have known that we did growing up, that they do naturally, because they're made up of the both of us. And it's just such a wild, cool thing to get to experience. But they are really awesome. They travel well, they're fun. I think I said they're 7, 5, and 3, but I have 2 boys and a little girl, and then our little girl in heaven.
Can you share more about Indy?
Yes.
It was incredible when you first shared about Indy on social media, just the response, and also I believe her life has touched so many people. So I'd love to hear her story.
Yes. So Indy, I say all my kids are going to be world changers. Indy just happened to change the world right off the bat. For those of you who don't know, I had a stillbirth with Indy, and it was unexpected because we had a heartbeat right before we delivered her. And I have to tell you, God gave us the most incredible community before all of this happened. Truly, I would say a week before we lost her is when we found our church, and the way they rallied behind us after her loss. Losing a child is not a club that you want to be a part of, because it hurts and it's hard, and it hits you in a place that, you as a parent don't ever want to go through that, and you don't ever want that on somebody else. But God just revealed himself so much in that time, and through other people as well, that we got to experience a closeness with him beyond anything that I can describe. He just really carried us through that storm. And I'll never forget it was Saturday that we lost her, and the very next day on Sunday, I'm like, I have to go to church. I want to go to church. And Carlos is like, me too. So we showed up and we're all worshiping, and this is like the one thing that does make me cry is like the whole church just gathered around us, and it felt like we were in the center of a tornado. We're like, it was just so chaotic all around us, but like we were safe in this center. And I just felt so held, and so did Carlos. And she just brought us so much closer together. She gave us so many new, fresh perspectives on life. Really gave us a boldness and a fearlessness that I think otherwise we felt a little bit more silenced, or a little bit more like, oh, well, we don't want to ruffle feathers, so we would kind of stay a little bit more quiet. And after Indy, it was almost like this awakening. She brought like the warrior side out of us. I can't explain it. And then after experiencing her and God carrying me through that, I'm like, I don't want to be quiet about this. I want everybody to know how much God showed up for us in this season. And I had no idea the impact that would have on other people. Loss is hard. And when you're able to share it with other people, and again, community, everything comes back to community. Nobody wants to be alone. Even the people that think they want to be alone, because Carlos is very much I'm a homebody. I don't really want people to come over. I just like love this independence. He grasped onto community, and he's just like, I need it. We all need it. He's like, I have to tell everybody that community is essential in your life. So I just feel like she was a true world changer, just right away.
You guys have been open about your pro-life conviction, which is, again, for in some pockets of our society, it's so controversial. There's such a price to pay. I think we have to change that. And I think the more voices like yours that speak out, it does do it has a tremendous impact to change that. The courage is courageous. How was Indy's life and the loss of Indy, how did that give you more perspective? You mentioned new perspectives and courage to speak up for life.
I have already felt so strongly about babies. Indy just so happened to be a full-term baby, but she was a baby when she was forming in my womb earlier in my pregnancy. Like, she never stopped being Indy just because, she just so happened to be at a different stage in her growing. So for me, it didn't ever change my perspective, but I think for other people, there was this kind of eye-opening moment for them to go, oh my gosh, life is precious. One of the things I think our biggest issue is we have a major cultural issue. Our best friend Andrew is a refugee from Afghanistan, and he would tell us that in that culture, a very normal thing to do is beat your wife when she doesn't do what you want or she is out of hand. And it's just a normal thing for them. So when his family, and it was a huge family that immigrated over, husbands were going to jail left and right because the wives knew it was illegal to do that here. And they couldn't understand why. She's out of hand. I need to beat her so that she knows that she needs to act better. And it was just a cultural norm. Nobody thought anything of it. But then you came here and it was different. Right now, abortion is a cultural norm. Nobody thinks anything of it. It's just a normal thing. Just like beating your wife is a normal thing. Just like slavery back in the day was a normal thing. It was their cultural norm. We need a massive culture shift. And that's our problem with today. It's just, we need a culture shift.
You are so spot on. I think you're so right. How do we do that, Alexa? How do we do the culture shift?
Well, I think you're doing it. And I know you're seeing it. The biggest thing are seeds planted. In my industry, it's a very pro-choice industry. But I have conversations with people who have very different views. All I can do is share with them people's journeys through what had happened through their abortions, and people who have been conceived through rape, who are now very loud pro-life advocates. I can just plant a seed, and that doesn't mean that someone's going to change right away. Often, more than not, you won't notice a difference, but a couple years later, those are the people usually leading the charge, or sometimes you do see the fruit of the seed that you get planted. My sister, just on a different topic, like just a faith topic, was talking to somebody who just wanted nothing to do with God. And 6 years later, she runs into this same girl again, and she's like, your conversation with me changed my life. And Chrissy was like, what? I had no idea. Like I honestly thought you just left there hating me or whatever. And she's like, no, that is the moment that changed my life. She's like, it didn't happen right away, but that was the moment that triggered everything. And I think it was such an encouragement for her and for me to know, like, we might not always see the fruit of the seeds that we plant, but planting those seeds is everything. And I think that's when we will get the culture shift. I wish we had clear bellies during pregnancy so people can see the life that's happening inside of us. We know it's happening. We know it's there. And I wish other people could grasp that more. But I think it's just doing our best to continue to educate people, make people more aware, and try to hopefully have that culture shift in our society today. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, especially because it is a very spiritual battle. It's not just flesh and blood, like you're talking, just it's warfare. But I will happily fight that fight. I will happily fight that fight. And there will still be people who know what they're doing and who choose that, because there are just people that are like that. God didn't promise a perfect world, but he promised us a world that he would see us through it.
How does your faith give you courage to speak out? And also, how does it affect your marriage, your parenting, your work?
Oh gosh, everything. I mean, God is our foundation. He's the foundation of our family. My kids love that they can go to God about everything. And the one encouragement that I give to parents when they're like, well, how do I teach my kids about God? Like, do we just pray together? And I'm like, well, actually, so back in the day when I was struggling to kind of really create that relationship with God, because it's not just this sit down, only talk to him at certain times. I'm like, I talk to God all the time. So in the beginning, I set this timer on my phone to go off like every 15 minutes as a reminder that, hey, God is always listening. He's always there. So just talk to him. So I'd be like cooking. I'd be doing the dishes. I'd be like folding clothes, whatever it was. And I would just constantly be reminded, oh, just talk to God, to where it became my, oh, I just talk to him all the time. And I do that in front of my kids now, where I just talk to God all the time. To anybody else, it probably look like a crazy lady in my kitchen just talking to God, but they just know I can always go to him because my mom always goes to him, because my dad always goes to him. They get to see it firsthand. So it doesn't have to be this thing that I'm teaching them to do. I'm showing them how to do it, so they get to do it. So faith is everything. It's the bedrock of our marriage. It's what gets us through our disagreements in our marriage, where I'm like, oh man, he's just really frustrating right now. But instead of just, I think, what did I read on Instagram? Like, if you treat your husband like a fool, he'll be a fool. But if you treat him like a king.
Instagram has these like zingers sometimes that are good, and you're like pulling it open and you're doom scrolling and you're like, oh wait, that convicted me.
So good. But it's so true. Like, I want to see the best in him, and I know he wants to see the best in me. So in our disagreements, the first thing I do is pray. Even though it might hurt sometimes, you're just like, oh my gosh, he's being a turd. I'm just gonna pray through that.
And then what about work? We were talking earlier before you sat down just about, I mean, you're getting into your own projects, which is amazing, and producing your own films now. But the industry is really hostile. It's hostile to life.
Oh, yeah.
It can be hostile to faith. I think that's changing. There's like these bright lights of excellence that are popping up, and people are trying to do new things to change the landscape of media.
Yeah.
How do you see media changing? And then how does your faith inform what you're trying to do?
So faith is informed everything for us. I mean, if you look at the projects that I was taking in my early 20s versus the projects that we're doing now, they're drastically different. I mean, you could totally see when that shift in my life started to occur. And then I think we just took such a nosedive as a culture, but especially in entertainment, in our industry, as far as like always wanting to push the boundaries more. So things that were available to watch just became harder and harder, to where you're like, this is pornographic now. Like, this is no longer just entertainment. Like, we have crossed every line, and that's the norm. That just became the norm. I think we're now watching a massive backlash, and we're shifting back to more family-friendly content overall. And even if it's not family-friendly content, it's just better content for you. We've just been consuming trash for so long. Our bodies are just like, please give me a glass of water. Like, please. So I'm noticing a big shift happen, and it's not happening because they're such good people and they want good movies out there for people. It's happening because they're losing money, because as a shift in culture happens with people like you, our family, other families coming forward saying, no, we're going to take a stance. We're not going to spend our dollars here anymore. Money speaks for most of these people who don't have the same values that we have. So when they start losing money, something has to change. And
I miss them in some ways, but we haven't shopped at Target for over a year now, which is a long time for me.
No.
I shop there a lot, I will be honest, but as long as and I know people say, well, a lot of these other companies do it, and you do even know, maybe you're shopping, but I think making the statement of 100%. If you push it this far, I mean, they were promoting, transgender swimsuits to little kids, and they claimed it's just to adults, but it's in the kids section. It's like there has to be a red line that we do something. We stop at a certain point and say, we're not going to continue to pretend like this is okay.
Yep.
And I do know a lot of other people who have not shopped there, or at least they're shopping less.
Right.
And I do think people said this year that whole agenda,
there was a shift.
There was a shift.
Did you see the shift?
There was less in-your-face garbage than there has been in past years.
Money talks. It's sad, but money really talks.
Thank you for talking. and beyond money, for being a voice for values, because I know it's not easy, and I know that maybe there's other opportunities or spaces that,
actually,
like, I don't want you anymore. But
I will tell you this. This is really funny. So as you know, in our industry, there are branding opportunities that come through for social media. And it's awesome because these brands, a lot of them, not a lot of them. I only work with brands that we fully believe in, use, and love. And that's it. That is our thing. And, we'll get offers for other stuff, and it would be amazing. Financially, that's awesome. But if it doesn't align with us, we don't do it. I literally had in my bio, it just said, lover of unborn babies and their mamas. Just something of
I love that.
It was just, and it wasn't like a hardcore pro-life statement.
How dare you love unborn babies, Alexa?
It was just like something just simple like that. And I was put on a blacklist, basically, of do not work with her because of this stance. She's a very edgy person to work with because of this stance.
What's so insane about that, though, is there are mega celebrities who have Planned Parenthood, which is killing babies.
I know.
1,000 babies a day. And that's okay to put in your bio. But if you say that you love babies, then you're on the blacklist.
Teen
How
idol
insane.
girls, these big singers, you go to their page and literally the website right there at the top is a Planned Parenthood website. And it is so unbelievably frustrating. Now, without saying a name, I had a family member who I kind of had this back and forth with, who at the time would go to Planned Parenthood often for checkups and all this other stuff. And she was like, well, I'm getting health care here. And I'm like, I hear that, but you can get health care at so many other places. This is not a place that actually cares about you. I promise you that. They don't actually care about you. And it took a couple years, it really did, for that shift to happen. But the shift happened, and it was awesome to see the realization. Heartbreaking, because we do have this idea of in society that Planned Parenthood takes care of women. No, they don't. They don't take care of women. They are actually anti-women. They're anti-women. They're
killing baby women.
They hurt more than they do good. I always go back to, there's this one picture years ago, and I don't know who uses it, but did you see the baby feet in a photographer's hands? And they're just so, the baby, it was probably this big, but just beautiful little feet. And I think images like that need to continue to grasp people, because cartoon images aren't going to cut it. They're not. And I know it's graphic. I know who wants to see a dead baby. Well, that's the point. It's murder. It's literally murder. And it breaks my heart that people don't see it yet. They're just so disconnected from it. So it just goes back to, like, we gotta just keep planting the seeds and help that culture shift. Because if they really thought, now there are some crazy people out there, but if they really thought that it was murder, they wouldn't do that. I wholeheartedly believe most people wouldn't do that. They just, it goes back to that, like, beating your wife is just such a normal thing in that culture that they just assume it's fine. So we just need a big shift.
When you think about especially younger women today, and I know a lot look up to you, and there's a lot of women that maybe they're involved already in like the influencer space, or they're involved in entertainment or media in some way, what would be your advice to them?
My advice would be, as far as like using their platforms.
Using their platforms and also just living their lives in a way that is purposeful.
Yeah, I mean, I think outside of just like what the voices of people, I do believe that the enemy like gives us these whispers that makes us fearful of using our voices, fearful of speaking out on these kinds of topics. But the more of us that use our voice, you'll realize you actually have a community of people around you willing to rally and fight with you for the things that are right to improve our world. So I would say it's okay to be different than everybody else right now, even though it does suck, even though you'll probably lose friends over it. It'll probably divide families. I'm pretty sure that's a verse where he's like, I've come to divide families, brother from sister, mother from son. Like, I really feel like if you are a faith-based person, because I see a lot of Christian people who are pro-choice, it does not add up to me. And if I could speak to anybody, I really want to speak right now to pro-choice, faith-based believers. Please sit down with God. Sit down with God and just pray and ask God, is this the right decision that I'm making? Is being a pro-choice person or activist the right choice in your eyes? And I guarantee you, God is gonna just change something in your heart, because he is forming these beautiful babies in the wombs of these mothers. Why would he want them to be destroyed? Why? And that's coming from, a faith-based standpoint. I have so many other standpoints outside of faith, but just from a faith-based standpoint, really sit down and ask God if this is something that he believes in. And I guarantee you it's a no.
And if they have that moment, and I know so many people I've talked to over the years, just thousands of people, especially younger women who I think, well-intentioned, trying to, do something good with their life, but they just always think, well, of course it's a woman's right, my body, my choice. And, it's a sad thing maybe, but it's a necessary thing. Like this is the mindset, right?
Right.
The world we're swimming in. But then once people, I think they have that moment of really heartbreak and openness to, no, this is a life and nothing can justify taking that life. And they've maybe had that moment, then what? What do you recommend for people who feel this conviction that's bubbling up inside them, but maybe they're just scared or they're unsure about what the next step is for them?
If they saw somebody, this is what I would say. If you have a friend that you saw use their voice about this exact thing that you're afraid to speak up on, how would it make you feel? Would it make you feel a little more encouraged? Would it make you feel like, oh my gosh, she did it or he did it, so I feel free to do it? You could be that voice for somebody else who is hesitant about standing up or stepping forward. So I feel like it takes one person to go against the grain to inspire a whole league of people to follow in your steps. So it's hard to step out. I understand that. But think of how many people feel exactly like you feel that are just waiting for the right person to use their voice to feel encouraged enough to also use theirs.
I love that. I love that. I think that honestly, that's everything. That one person being willing to speak up, that person that maybe gave you the inspiration that we have to fight for these lives, be that courage for somebody else.
Yeah.
And you don't have to always feel courageous when you're speaking. Because sometimes when you're speaking and we make the most impact, it's when we're speaking even though we're feeling
a
fear.
certain way.
We're feeling some fear about it, but God uses that so powerfully.
Does. Well, you know what's so funny is I've been pro-life my whole life. Like I'd never thought any other way. Like these are little humans. But I remember the first time I said it publicly on like a social media post was in our backyard, and I was doing a Q&A and just kind of like answering all these questions. And one of the questions was like, oh, I'm assuming because you're Christian, you're pro-life, and like kind of like bad mouthing it a little bit. And I had never been asked like point blank like that. I just assumed like, well, yeah, of course I'm pro-life. But it was the first time that I really felt compelled to actually use my voice and say that, because I realized, oh, even though I'm a Christian, people still aren't sure if I'm pro-life or not. So I was like, oh yeah, I have no problem saying this. And I said it and I sent it. And what was wild was I've never had a problem using my voice in that way ever. And I sent it, and all of a sudden a rush, like this like feeling over my whole body. And it was like such a spiritual feeling. I almost felt like attacked, where I was like, oh my gosh, is this gonna be bad? Like and I didn't even think like that. And sure enough, it wreaked havoc. But I loved it, because I'm like, great, I'm at war, and this is a war I'm willing to fight, and I'm happy to do it. But in that process, because I've had family members, I've had friends, people that I love and care about who have had abortions, who've had more than one abortion, you know, it breaks my heart. I don't stop loving them. In fact, like, I know it just makes me have to love them harder, and just pray harder. And I wish they could see the way I see, but me yelling and kicking and screaming and operating out of a place that's not from a place of love, that's not going to help anybody. So the one thing I will say, like, when using your voice, be passionate, be proactive, but be loving. The second you step out of a place of love, you're entering into a territory that you don't want to be in, because you're no longer operating in His grace. You can be angry, you can be frustrated, but you still have to be loving.
I think there was, earlier I was sitting down with one of the life awardees for our event, and she has spent years in prison for being pro-life. But she was saying the woman that inspired her, who had spent also years in prison for just praying outside abortion clinics, she would say...
Is that insane? I'm sorry.
It is insane. And this is in Canada and the United States that this is happening. These are our sisters who are just lovingly, prayerfully standing up for babies outside abortion clinics. But she was saying that the woman that inspired her, Joan Bell, she would say, we love the abortionists. We love the abortion workers. Of course, we love every single woman. Even women going in for abortion, you'd say, I know what I'm doing, like, you know, anger, that respond to them in anger. We love you.
Yes.
That's why we're here. And the truth can still hurt, because this is a war for life, and we have to be willing to speak the truth. But like you're saying, it has to be done in the spirit of love.
It has to.
And that's what will, in the end, I think, end this
I agree.
tragedy.
I agree.
We're willing to speak out boldly, but with love.
Well, so many of these women just want to be embraced. That's what they're looking for. They feel lost and alone. They don't feel like there's anywhere else to go. Their families might be pushing for it. Their boyfriends or husbands, even, like, somebody might be pushing for it, and that's not even something that they want to do. They just need to know that they have people rallying behind them. And I think the media has done a really good job at the fact that these pro-lifers aren't pro-birthers. They're pro-life, meaning that they don't want just your child to be born. They want to help your child in the growing process. They want to help you after you've given birth. Like, it is a true family. It's a community. It's a warm embrace. It's not just a, great, now that you had your baby, we're going to kick you to the curb. There are so many beautiful organizations like yours that see women through long after birth and help their children, help them, help their family situation. And it does take a community. It really, really does.
It's a village.
It's a village.
It's true.
It's a village. But I think unfortunately a lot of people assume pro-life is pro-birth. And well, what happens after she has her baby? My gosh, there's so many places that I could show you.
I think part of that is, like you were saying, the power of the media narrative
Media.
that's so deceptive and so confused on this.
know.
But that's why I think your voice has been so awesome. Thank you, Alexa. Seriously, it's an inspiration to me and an encouragement.
Oh.
And I know people listening, it's going to just be that extra encouragement to go out there and speak the truth and
Speak the truth.
be that advocate for life. How can people find you, and what's next for you?
Up next for us is our Great American Family
Excited
Christmas
to see
movie.
that. When is that going to come out?
I think it's December 20th.
This
Yes.
year.
Oh, yes. It's
Okay.
this year.
So this is the last edit
This
that
is
Carlos
the
is
last
doing.
edit. It's this the Saturday before Christmas.
How
So I can't remember if that's like the 21st or 22nd, something like that. And then Carlos is on tour right now. You can find us on social media. I'm trying to back off a little bit, but our work, everything is on social media nowadays. And at the end of the day, I'm like, this is where I know I can get my voice heard. So
And it's
use
making it. It's making a difference.
It's making a difference. So you can either let social media be bad for you or good for you. So we're choosing to make it be good for us.
Thanks, Alexa. You are awesome.
Thank you for having me.